Welcome to another edition of Voices with Genius. I'm thrilled to be here today with Stephen M.R. Covey. Why? Because as we round out what by any measure could be described as a wild year in nearly every respect, our guest embodies what it takes to navigate great times of change at home and work. And what I've come to know in nearly 4 decades in business and in life is that truly great leaders are not just servants nor stewards. Stephen Covey, in his wonderful new book, Trust and Inspires, shares how genius leaders follow that which is greater than themselves. And we know that great leaders do serve and steward, and that they inspire faith and trust in one another. And let's keep in mind today, as we get into our discussion with Stephen, that when we speak of leadership, we are not just talking about leadership in the workplace or in politics. It begins at home and in our community. Leadership is not out there. It's in here. Great leaders share from their heart and not just their head. And how do they do that? What are the keys to become an effective leader? What is their secrets? Let's explore those questions and more. Stephen M.R. Covey is the co-founder and CEO of Covey Link and the Franklin Covey Global Trust Practice, as well as a New York Times bestselling author. Instead of me going on and on with the fullness of this man, this heart, I'm inviting you to check out his website. Go to trustandinspire.com, trustandinspire.com, and check him out. And check out the work that he's been doing for many decades in his own right. And of course, pick up his new best-selling book, Trust and Inspire. It's worth it. Welcome, Stephen. It's nice to be here with you again.
Well, wow. Thank you so much, Adam. It is fantastic to see you and to be with you and your community. I'm really touched by your kind introduction and the spirit in which you bring into a conversation. So thank you. I'm delighted and excited to have this discussion with you today.
Wonderful. Well, many of us, know about Franklin Covey and have read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and all that great work that has been going on up there, which you've been a part of, obviously, to really transform business, but also transform our relationships with our children, our kids, our family, and in life, in general. And of course, you've been instrumental in stewarding that forward. But what I've noticed in my early relationship with you, with reading your work and viewing some of the things that you've been sharing around the globe, well, probably over the last few decades in particular, is that you have broken the barrier. Now, Stephen, there's sound barriers, there's speed barriers, and there are many other human barriers. But the barrier I'm talking about is what I've come to know as the most important barrier of all, the trust barrier. Please share with us. Tell us a little bit about who are you and what is your mission? What has led you to this place of breaking barriers in the most important ways?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I love that idea, the trust barrier. because it is precisely that. And if you think about it, it is trust that really makes our world go round. It's trust that makes organizations work. They thrive when there's trust. They diminish when there's distrust. It's trust that makes relationships enduring and joyful and productive. And it's also trust that really gives us that confidence, the self-trust, the self-confidence that comes from having a sense of integrity and clarity and even the power that can come from that self-trust. And so I think that trust is so foundational for all of life. And think about this. Just imagine a world without trust. If there were no trust in the world, we literally couldn't almost do anything. You'd have a hard time going anywhere, if getting in a car and driving, if you couldn't trust that people would basically follow some norms and protocols and rules and drive on their side of the road if there were no trust. So trust makes everything work. And I have felt, so about me, I found my mission and my life work around trust. And it came from my own experience when we merged our company, the Covey Leadership Center, with Franklin Quest to form Franklin Covey. Two good companies, two good organizations coming together with values and good people. But we had been arch competitors for years in the time management business. And now we're put together, and suddenly there was low trust, not because we'd done things to each other while we were together, but because of the past, the history, just the different perspectives. And I saw firsthand the high cost of low trust and how everything slowed down. Everything took longer. We became internally focused instead of focusing on the customer in the marketplace. And we were not optimizing the merger at all. It was actually diminishing of what we initially intended to do. But then we focused on let's build trust with each other. And we went from really low trust to high trust intentionally by behaving our way into greater trust and listening first and demonstrating respect for what we heard. And in mergers, that's so critical. And then clarifying expectations and then being accountable to those expectations and then keeping commitments and doing what we say we're going to do. But most importantly, through extending trust. You got to give trust to get trust. We had to do that. And when we did that, we began to build the trust. And when we built the trust, it changed everything. Suddenly, we began to grow again. We began to be far more profitable, and we became more energized, greater well-being and greater impact. Our mission all around the world, the people we were influencing, and that continues to this day. And it was from that whole experience that I realized what I wanted to focus on, because I had, I always known that trust mattered. I mean, it is obvious, it's important, but I saw firsthand and experienced firsthand the high cost of low trust. But I also saw how trust was learnable. It was something we could build intentionally on purpose. And that when we built it, it changed everything. Trust is truly the one thing that changes everything. And we had gone through that trust barrier and built it. And suddenly I said, this is what I want to talk about, because we're underestimating the impact, the importance, the preeminence of trust in all of life, in organizations, in relationships, in individuals. And maybe by a factor of 100, we're underestimating it. Yeah. And trust matters in profound ways, and you can move it. You can build it, grow it. It's not just you either have it or you don't. It's movable. It's learnable. And we're not doing enough about this. And I found my voice around trust. And I said, I want to write about this. I want to dive deep into this. I want to study this. And I want to do this. And it's been 20 plus years now that I've been focused on this. And I'll tell you the most interesting thing, Adam, is prior to this, I'd always kind of been on the business side of things, running the business, building the business. Because my father is the one, Stephen R. Covey, passed away about a decade ago. He wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. And it's impacted so many people. And I helped build the business. And I always felt a little bit reticent to try to be a thought leader, because I thought I had my father's same name, and kind of no matter what, I'm going to just be a poor man's version. And it was a little bit disconcerting. I was a little bit too much self-oriented on this. And so I said, you know what, I'll go into the business side. I'll help build the business because I had strengths there. And I did that. I did it really well. But the interesting thing is, once I had this experience of merging our companies and experiencing the high cost of low trust and the tremendous returns and energy and dividends and outcomes of high trust and how it was learnable. And when I felt I found my voice, all my fear dissipated. And I now felt I found my calling, and I want to write about this. I want to speak about this. I want to go into this. And I'm no longer worried about a comparison to my father or being a poor man's version. It didn't matter to me anymore. I just felt like I know what I want to talk about. We need trust in this world. And yes, that's where it changed everything. And so that's been my second act, which I think is my calling, to help increase trust in the world.
Well, thank you for helping to increase trust and to, really helping all of us, be it in the business world or wherever it is, as a model of trust and as a heart of model of trust, as a soul model of trust, just all of that is flowed through, and a blessing to, of course, your father, Stephen R. Covey, and all that he offered in his own way. And of course, that challenge it ultimately left, did it not, to a deeper trust of yourself to really embrace this voice and mission. It feels that way to me. I feel that in you, Stephen. And one of the things that some of our audience may know, or others may not, is, this is a second book, and you maybe have some other ones with trust in the title. The first one was the bestseller called The Speed of Trust. And I want to go a little deeper into trust and kind of hack that a little bit. And you touched upon some of the things about trust. Is trust, we can learn trust, as you said. Is it something that we must earn? You must earn my trust. You must show up for my trust. Is that it? What are your thoughts around earning trust?
Yes, trust is earned. How do we earn it? Through our character and through our competence, both, the combination of character and competence. And the character is our integrity and our intent of how we work with others, seeking others' best interests, and so that they can trust you because they know you care about them and you're seeking their best interest. And our integrity, that we will, we're honest, we're truthful, but we're authentic, we're real, we do the right thing. And there's a power that comes from that. That's our character, but it's also our competence, that we have the capabilities to be relevant for the things that we're doing. And we have a track record of results, of performance, so that we get a reputation that we do what we say we're going to do. We deliver. Because someone might have character but lack competence. So I might trust them to watch my home because they're honest. But if I went on a vacation, but I might not trust them on the key project or the key client or the key deliverable if they don't have a track record of performing, of delivering, of coming through. So character without competence, you'll never have, enough trust. Competence without character doesn't work either. Maybe they deliver and they get the job done and they perform, That's the competence. But what if they're running people over in the process, or violating the values, the beliefs of the organization, or cutting corners, or not demonstrating integrity, or being self-serving? That's not going to sustain it either. You need both the character and competence. We earn that. We demonstrate that. But here's what I want to really highlight, Adam. Trust is earned, and trust is given.
Yes.
Trust is given. And too often we have focused only on the first half.
Yeah.
Earning trust. And I don't want to downplay it. We got to earn it. That makes us trustworthy. Trust is earned. But it's not enough to merely be trustworthy in order to have trust. Think about it this way. You could have two trustworthy people working together, both trustworthy, and yet no trust between them, even though they're both trustworthy, if neither person is willing to extend trust to the other. So to have trust, yes, we need to be trustworthy, but we also need to be trusting, willing to give that trust, to extend that trust, being trusting of others. And when we have both, when we are trustworthy and trusting, when we earn it and when we give it, we will create abundant trust. But both halves are vital. And so in the work I do on trust, I talk about you've got to earn it through character and competence. That's your credibility. And you've got to give it. You've got to be trusting as well as trustworthy. And when we do that combination, we can build that trust in relationships and teams and cultures. But it does all start with that self-trust, the trust we have in ourselves.
Yeah.
It's the source of all other trust.
Oh, indeed, indeed. Without that trust of ourselves, then how can we ever extend that? And how can we earn it? So such an important point, easy to miss that point. And what do you find is the best way to come to moments in time and places in time where trust is lost? In my world, I'm often come back to a place of inner forgiveness, of losing trust in myself, and then subsequently maybe losing trust in others or the organization that I'm involved in. What are your thoughts around regaining trust, let's say?
Yes, restoring trust, regaining it, reestablishing it. Here's some of my thoughts. First of all, my overarching thought is I believe in most situations, not all, but in most, I believe it is possible to restore trust. It's not easy, and it may take some time, but in most situations, it's possible. I acknowledge maybe not in every situation. There might be some situations where the nature of the loss of trust is so egregious, especially when it's on the character side and the integrity side. It might be so egregious that it just may be really difficult. And also there may be the nature of the relationship might be very transactional. People have moved on. You don't have a chance. And also it takes kind of both parties being willing to participate in the restoring of trust. Yeah. And the one that lost it and the one that maybe had the trust violated, they need to be willing to allow people to have the chance to regain it. So I just want to kind of acknowledge that there might be some situations where you don't have a chance to restore it. But I believe in most situations, you can restore trust. But here's the key principle. You can't talk your way out of a problem that you behaved your way into. So if we've lost people's trust through our behavior, words alone won't get it back. The only way to get it back is to behave our way back into trust. You can't talk your way back into it. You got to behave your way back into it. But I believe you can, in most situations, behave your way. If you kind of confront the reality that you've lost trust, and then you practice accountability, you own it. You know, it's hard to restore trust with somebody if you're saying, it's their fault, his fault, her fault, blaming, but when you say it's my responsibility, I own this, then you right the wrong. That might mean apologizing. It might mean making restitution, a legal concept to make whole. You make it whole. You do the best you can. And then you kind of clarify expectations going forward of what you're going to try to do and focus on to reestablish the trust. And then most importantly, you keep the commitment you just made. You do what you say you're going to do. And you can behave your way back into trust, just like you could behave your way out of it. Now, it takes a lot longer to restore it than it does to lose it. You can lose it overnight or in 5 seconds. It might take you a lot of time to regain it. But if you're willing to behave your way back into trust, I think it's possible. And that's hopeful because if you couldn't restore trust, in a sense, we'd all be circling the drain because we've all fallen short. We all make mistakes. And we got to be able to restore it. Me too.
Yes, those failures can be success as well. And obviously they've offered us all a great opportunity. And, when we think about restoring trust and not simply leadership, but restoring trust in business, do you believe that the lack of trust in business is systemic? Is this really the issue that could really, let's say, really evolve business and catapult business into a whole nother place, be it restore trust with customers, be it restores trust with its people, with its greatest asset, the people that show up every day to serve that company? Is that the issue facing business? I know that's a big, broad question, but it's got to be right up there at 1, 2, or 3, you would think.
It is. And yes, Adam, this is an extraordinary opportunity with possibilities that are remarkable, because when there is lower trust in relationships, on teams and organizations, or in institutions, you pay a tax. You are diminished. You're diluted. Everything that you do is diluted. It is, I call it taxed, and it's a wasteful tax. It's not useful. That where you lose the value, and people are skeptical and cynical about it because they don't trust. And there is a high cost to low trust, and everything will take longer and cost more. But it saps energy and joy. It's no fun. And it is exhausting to be part of a low trust team, low trust culture, compared to the contrast of the energy, the joy, the exhilaration that comes from being part of a high trust team and culture. And the fact that we're really in a crisis of trust in our world, in our society, and in most institutions today, in most parts of the world, it comes at a big price. As I think it was Thoreau that said, Emerson, our distrust is very expensive. There's a cost to this.
Yeah.
And the cost is both financial, but also qualitative of what it does to relationships and teams and cultures. And so if we can instead take this cost, this tax, and convert it into a dividend, into a possibility, into an opportunity of what you can do with high trust. And that's kind of my merger story writ large, is we saw the high cost of low trust and how that diluted and taxed us on everything we were trying to do. We turned it around as we created the trust intentionally, and we saw the tremendous outcomes and returns and possibilities that emerged from creating trust in every relationship and at every level. And so it's really important that businesses do this. But here's the key thing for business. Just like it is for a person, the key for a business to build trust with their customers and in the marketplace is to first build trust with their own people, with their own team, inside their own culture. It's inside out. And they've kind of skipped that step and say, let's just focus on building trust with customers only. And inside the company, there's toxic distrust. You're not going to sustain that trust with customers, because at some point it will bleed out, leak out. The distrust will go out into the marketplace. So you want to build trust with customers? Yes, that's critical. Build trust first with your own people. It would be incongruent to ask people who you don't trust, your team members, your employees, to go out and build trust with customers. That's incongruent, but it is natural and abundant to ask people who you trust, your team members. I trust you. Now go out and build trust with customers. It's inside out. The way that we're going to win in the marketplace with customers is because we first win in the workplace with our own people, inside out. And so that's what's critical. That's the opportunity. And again, too often in business, we skip the inside step and just want to go out. But the only way out is in, as my friend Doug Conant likes to say.
Well, I'm with you on that. It is an inside job. And I also want to underscore, the cost of lack of trust and just to add a piece to it as well. And when we think about vibrancy, we think about health, we think about wellness, both individually and for our company. When the great cost is one of our health, of our physical health, our mental health, our wellness. And could you imagine if we hold organizations in the most optimal state of trust and what that would do simply to a line item in our expenses relating to healthcare, loss of productivity, people not showing up for work, all the things that are an outgrowth of lack of trust. So the health and wellness of the individual and the organization really comes forth when we have that trust. So I love us diving into that piece of it because it's not about what just, having it. It's also, when we don't, and we obviously are here to address really a key systemic issue in business and how it would transform this from top to bottom to top, side to side of how business can come forth. That's why I feel your work, Stephen, in your voice, in your light in this area is so important. And I want to penetrate this trust barrier a little more. Yeah. This short amount of time. I want to go kind of through it a little more. And it's abstract for many of us, this idea of trust. And, it's non-specific. It's kind of like peace and love, trust. And so let's kind of penetrate this a little bit more. And I want to throw out a multiple choice question to you.
Okay.
And then let's see if that guides us to getting into a little more through this barrier of trust. And how would you answer the following multiple choice questions? A, trust is a thought. B, trust is a feeling. C, none of the above. D, A, and B above.
I would say D, that it is, I would first say that it is a feeling. So that was the B, that you feel it, something that you feel. The reason I say that also, though, that maybe trust is a thought is that it is a decision to trust. And that is a decision that you can make. And you can be trusting. You can think this way. It's a mindset of, I start from the premise of, I trust people until they give me reasons why I shouldn't. Or you could start the other way, which is, I don't trust people until they give me reasons why I should. They got to earn it, but that will take you a lot longer. So I would normally say trust is a feeling and that you feel it. You feel the trust. And that is certainly true. And because you can also feel not trusted. And we remember what we feel, that stays with us. Yeah. I also, though, want to give some credence to the idea that it's a mindset too. Yeah. And that's especially on the giving side. And I have a mindset of saying, I'm going to be trusting. That's a decision I make. It's a choice I make. And becoming aware of that and thoughtful about it, I think can be a differentiator in our decision to trust.
Oh, indeed. And I think for many of us, we and I know this happened for me certainly early on in my business career, that it was very linear and my approach was, go get it, go do it, achieve it, the goals, the whole thing. And not and de minimis, it was de minimis of just the feeling of what it is to trust myself and to trust others and to really lead the organizations and businesses that I had, albeit small. It doesn't matter because big and small, it's all, there's nothing more key to bringing it forth. And I think for many of us, we forget about that piece that you just shared with us so beautifully, this piece that has to do with EQ, emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
How are we being present in emanating that trust? Because like you wonderfully shared, it is an inside piece. And how can we help others to feel that as it emanates from us? Because you shared a great truth, and that is giving is receiving. Giving of trust is receiving the trust. Absolutely. I mean, imagine it. Would you really want to go through your life without receiving the trust of others? I mean, it's almost like saying you're not receiving the love and joy of who you are. So it's deeply profound, and I just honor the work that you're bringing to, business and places and people and community, and how we can bring that from the inside out. So thank you for illuminating that, and that the giving is receiving and the receiving is the giving, and it's a beautiful loop of trust, and that in its own right is helping us to break through that trust barrier. I believe what you've articulated is a barrier, breaker. We're going to move through it. I want to take
Can I just make one observation?
Absolutely. Yeah,
I love it. I love it. I love the parallel you drew to love too. Because think about it. Love is both a noun and a verb.
Yeah.
So love, the feeling, I feel the love. Yeah. Love, the verb. I love people. I sacrifice for them. I demonstrate the love. Trust is the same. There's trust, the noun. I feel trust. I feel trusted. I feel that trust of myself. I feel the trust from this person, from this figure, this leader, that trusts me. I feel it. And then there's trust, the verb. I trust people. I demonstrate the trust in them. I'm showing them. So it's both the feeling and the action. The noun trust the verb, and we give it. And so I think love, the parallel to love is beautiful. Indeed, and without that, we wouldn't have the trust, right? We wouldn't have the trust. we must come from that place. Most certainly, it seems obvious, but I know in my life I've missed the most obvious things that are right here. They're right. Well, we all do. We all do, and even our very start of our conversation, Adam, that you got to trust yourself first. That seems obvious too, but we often lose sight of that. And sometimes I'll never forget one time a person acknowledged to me that he didn't trust anybody and he couldn't trust anybody. And it's kind of, he goes, that's just the way I'm wired. And as I spent more time with him, what came out was, he said, the reality is I don't trust myself. Yeah. And what was happening, he was projecting that distrust that he had of himself out onto everybody else. That became his lens through which he saw the world. And by just focusing on that self-trust. And so he asked me, how do I build trust with myself? And I said, well, that's the right question to ask. Start there, because that's how you'll build trust with others, is by first learning to trust yourself. And my advice was very simple. It was learn to make and keep commitments to yourself. Yeah. And what's interesting, Adam, is that the research shows that the fastest way to build trust with another person is to make a commitment to that person and then to keep it. And make another commitment and keep it. Make, keep, commit, repeat, make, keep, repeat. Becomes a virtuous upward spiral. You can build trust fast that way with others. Guess what? it's also the fastest way to build trust with yourself, is to make a commitment to yourself and then keep it, especially in the little things. So it's as easy as I go into bed and I set my alarm and set it at 6. And I say, no, I'm going to set it up at 5 and go exercise. The next morning it goes off. Do you say, I'm going to go get some more sleep, or do you get up and exercise? And, it's a little commitment. Learn to make and keep commitments to yourself. As you do that, there comes a sense of clarity, of integrity, of power. It can happen faster than you think too, in those little things. So that's the ultimate inside job, right? This is inside out, starting with yourself. And it's at one level self-evident. And yet we too often try to go out to all these other grandiose thoughts and ideas and miss the most critical sequence of this, which is we've got to start with ourselves.
Well, thank you for that. And again, it seems so obvious, and it's a practice. And it is a journey in its own right. And I just honor anyone, whether you're running, a Fortune 500 company or wherever it is that you're in that journey of cracking, of hacking, which we've kind of been doing, this trust barrier. You're showing up for it, and that's all that matters. And you're in the practice of that. So I honor that, and all of those that are beginning to enjoy that. And I want to crack open your book just for a moment. And what I love about this book that I don't find in not many books, but when you pick up something, you pick up a book and maybe you read it, start to finish, and then maybe you look at the resources or whatever it is. And then when you have a body of work, a body of knowledge, a body of wisdom, as important as trust and inspiration, when you come to a body of work that you can just open up any page and have a realization. Forgive me, I had the book the wrong way. But when you can open up any page and then have a learning or a teaching from that page, that shares the depth of the material. That shares the relevancy of the world, of the work. And one of the things I found in the world and work that I'm awfully engaged in, the more philosophical work at times, or the mystical work, or how do we want to hack into parts of our lives that we don't know? We open just a page into a place of, let's take a deeper dive. So let's take a deeper dive for a moment, Stephen, Great. Into the page that I opened up, if it's cool with you.
That's cool.
And I'd love to hear about this page, what you shared about success to significance, and how does trust play into our being and engaging successfully to becoming significant in ourselves, in our lives, in our family, in our community, at work.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yes. And on that page, this book is not just trust, it's trust and inspire. And it's kind of my new evolved additional thinking, taking what I did with the speed of trust, but then saying, now, how does that translate into our leadership style? The kind of style that's going to work is not the old model of command and control. Mm-hmm. That might have worked in a different era. It's not going to work today. Not in this new world of work where people have choices and options, and these younger generations and millennials and Gen Z that have a completely different expectation of how they want to engage and be led. And now there's people working remotely or hybrid work or intentionally flexible work, and everything's shifted. And so command and control won't work in our new world. So what will? I'm calling it trust and inspire. You model, you trust, you inspire. And this piece is on inspiring, that the whole idea that people are whole people, a body, a heart, a mind, and a spirit. They're not just economic beings. So because people are whole people, My job as a leader is to inspire, not merely motivate. Motivation is kind of the carrot and stick. And if people were just economic beings, financial beings only, just a body, then motivation would be sufficient. But they have a heart. So they want to connect and they want to care and love. They have a mind. So they want to develop and grow and contribute. And they have a spirit. So they want to matter, to have meaning, to have purpose, to have contribution, to have significance. And so this piece of moving from success to significance is saying, look, part of how we can inspire people as leaders is to see them as whole people that have a desire for meaning and purpose and contribution, a desire for significance. And especially as they begin to have some success, you move from survival to stability to success. But is that the end all? No. To significance, to mattering, to leaving a legacy. And the more you can tap into purpose and meaning and contribution in the work that you're doing, the more you'll inspire people because they long for significance. We long to matter. We long to make a difference, to have a legacy. It's in us. Now, it's not the first need, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You got to take care of those physical needs first, and then belonging and these things. But, even Maslow took his hierarchy and he went later, he says there's something beyond self-actualization, which would be success. And he later wrote an essay that said there's self-transcendence. That's going from success to significance. Yeah. And when you do that, that will inspire people. And we need to inspire. People want to be inspired. It's the number one thing people want from their leaders is a leader who inspires. And you can, and too often we've equated inspiration with charisma, kind of like you got to be charismatic to inspire. No, they're different. You inspire when you connect with people through caring and belonging. And you will inspire when you connect people to purpose and to meaning and to contribution. In other words, to significance, to mattering. That's the idea behind moving from success to significance.
Oh, wow. That's just fantastic. Thanks for putting that color around this importance, because I think, relevancy or significance in our lives, we all want to be seen. We want to be helped. We want to be recognized. And, kind of the buzzword in the business world over the last few years has been about building culture. Right. It's probably become a multi-billion-dollar industry, just trying to build culture. And I want to just touch briefly in on something that you inspired in just a moment ago in me, is building and creating and maintaining a culture of significance. And when I think about culture, not just in the world that we operate within and in our business and elsewhere, I often default, Stephen, back to nature and how the natural world builds its culture and grows culture, as a matter of fact, regenerates culture continuously and effortlessly. So a little bit of business biomimicry here, which can be fun sometimes too, is, what do you have any thoughts on building a culture of significance? In other words, significance in cultures can be so magical and can do things that are extraordinary and really create moments of awe. Why can't we bring that into our business and make that our significant culture in real time in every day of our lives?
It's a wonderful question. And I think we can. And I think we're sub-optimizing the possibilities when we don't focus on this. And I'll give you an illustration of an organization that is focused on building a culture of significance. And they do it also, by the way, by, you also want that culture of significance to be a high trust culture of significance and a culture that inspires.
Yeah.
So that people feel inspired. One reason why there's so much burnout is in organizations today, people have been working hard and the like, but many people are quite engaged, working hard, but they're utterly uninspired because there's not enough significance. They don't see the connection of why this matters enough. And they also don't feel trusted, which also exhausts people. Like you were saying, it's just exhausting and it saps the energy and the joy. Whereas being trusted, feeling that trust creates the energy and the joy. So this culture of significance, here's a good example.
Yeah.
The Pepperdine University, amazing organization, worked with their Jim Gash, their president, and others, but their school of business, the Graziano School of Business, listen to what their purpose is. They state it this way: our purpose is not to produce leaders who are best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Our purpose is to produce leaders who are best for the world. Best for the world leaders. That's our purpose.
Yeah.
Imagine if I'm a professor there.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Producing best for the world leaders. You're a staff member there. What's your job? I'm producing best for the world leaders. You're a janitor. What are you doing? We're producing best for the world leaders. That matters. That's a culture of significance. And so it's really, sometimes we have to be imaginative, creative, of trying to just say, how can we tap into purpose and meaning and contribution that we're trying to provide as an organization, that what we do matters. I'll give you another little example. Johnsonville Sausage. Mm-hmm. They're one of the biggest sausage makers in the world. And the joke, no one wants to see how the sausage gets made type of thing. Well, they make the sausage, so it's kind of like, well, can they have significance? They do, because Ralph Steyer, their founder, he's focused on, he says, most, organizations are such that the people are there to, help the organization succeed. At Johnsonville, our organization exists to grow our people, to develop our people. They literally have just said, we are all about the growth, the development of our people. And they've made that an end, the means to an end, and have inspired. And if I'm at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, they're curing childhood cancer. There's inspiration there. There's contribution there right from the get-go. But at Johnsonville, they found a way to tap into significance and contribution in by how they approach their business. And so we have to be imaginative, creative, but really have a mindset of saying, this is about contribution. And I like to say, I learned this from my father. Life is about contribution, not accumulation.
Yeah.
So I have a mindset of contribution. And my father's last big idea is a brand new book that my sister finished with him. And it's called Live Life in Crescendo. Like in music, where in crescendo it goes up, in innuendo it goes down.
Yeah.
You're living life in crescendo. It's going up. And the subtitle is, your most important work is always ahead of you. It's always in front of you because you're living life in crescendo. And it's about contribution. So you might retire from a particular job, but you never retire from making contributions, from having significance. And we need that kind of feeling in our organizations today. And I'll tell you what, it's what people want.
Yeah.
And especially the younger generations, but
Yeah.
millennials, they're called, and Gen Z, some people are calling them the purpose generations. But you know what? I find I'm a baby boomer. I want purpose too. And Gen X does. And even traditionalists do. Every generation wants purpose. It's the secret sauce. And we're not tapping into it near enough. And we're not, I call it co-purposing, overlapping the organizational purpose with individual purpose. So that's the fire. There's a fire within there that can really ignite people and become inspired in the very work that we're doing. Trust and inspire. And we need both. And we need to be trusting, we need to be inspiring. And, that's the idea of how we will ultimately create a culture of significance, is because we are leading in a way that is tapping into that sees people as whole people, that sees people as having greatness inside of them. So we're trying to unleash it, and that sees leadership as stewardship, not as rights, but as responsibilities. And that also sees that there's an abundance mentality, that there's enough for everyone, not a scarcity mentality. So let's elevate caring above competing. Let's put service above self-interest. And then that all of this enduring influence will come from the inside out. So let's model the way and go first. This mindset, that's a trust and inspire leader. Yeah. That's what will unleash the greatness inside of our people and our teams. And that's what will move us from success to significance, and to ultimately to having a high trust culture of significance.
Well, that really brings it full circle for us in so many ways, because what I keep hearing and keeps calling me into the moment with you is the leader, the committed leader, the leader that knows what he or she is following, that brings the gift of that trust, that brings the gift of their heart, their soul, their light, their vibrancy, yes, their knowledge, yes, their wisdom, yes, the place of where we can share is one. And before we kind of close out, I have just one last one for you to connect with you on, because I found something that was kind of like in the bottom of a box the other day. And I just, somehow it just says, let's take a look at it for a moment. And I want to get your feelings and thoughts on this. And it's this, maybe you recognize it. Do you recognize this little golden book of rules by Dale Carnegie?
Oh yeah.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. When I started in the business world back in my early 20s, somehow I ended up with this. I want to think my dad gave this to me. Like, here, Adam, go get it. So we got a little golden book of inspiration here, and you open it up, and here's it says here, fundamental techniques. Like, my eyes are not as good as they used to be. Fundamental, and it's a little book, folks. This is like a 0.6. This is like a 6 font, by the way. Fundamental techniques in handling people. And so he offered, of course, 3 little techniques. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Give honest, sincere appreciation. And 3, arouse in other persons an eager want. And what are 3 simple little techniques that you want to leave us with today in the most simple little way in this little golden book of inspiration?
Beautiful. Thank you, Adam. I would say this, that because again, this is the whole premise of this book, Trust and Inspire, is that people don't want to be managed. People want to be led. They want to be trusted They want to be inspired. That's what's going to bring out their best, which will help our team be their best, its best. So when we do this as a leader or as a human being, as a person, as a parent, as a family member, as a friend, as a neighbor, as we work with people and we extend trust to people, here's what I would say. Be intentional about extending trust to others.
Mm.
And then when you do extend trust to them, tell them. So the first step is the mindset. Be intentional about seeking opportunities to extend trust to others. Second, when you extend trust to others, tell them that you trust them.
Yeah.
And sometimes people say, well, I did trust you, but they didn't feel trusted.
Right.
It's not enough that you say that you trust them. They need to feel trusted. Yeah. So say, hey, I'm asking you to take on this responsibility. And the reason I'm giving you this to you is because I trust you. And then third, and tell them why you trust them. So it's not just, a freebie. It's, I trust you because I've seen you deliver time and time again. I trust you because I know your heart, and this is going to require a lot of heart to get this done well. I trust you because I have seen you do this or that, and because my experience with you is this. And I saw a leader one time do this with his executive team in front of 150 people. And he called out his executive team. There's like 10 of them. John, I trust you because this. Susan, I trust you because of this. And it was really quite remarkable as I watched this. It was sincere. It was not a technique. It was a heartfelt practice. But what I learned was that it's not enough that trust is extended. People need to feel trusted. How will they feel trusted? Tell them that you trust them, and then tell them why you trust them. Then they will feel trusted, and then they want to live up to that trust, be worthy of it. They reciprocate and return the trust to you. They trust you back, and it becomes a virtuous upward spiral. And we need this in our world.
Yes.
We need more trust and inspiration in our world.
Yes.
And Adam, to all our listeners and viewers, while it takes 2 or more people to have trust, it only takes 1 to start. And each of us can be that one. So that'd be my message.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And there you have it, folks. How about those golden wisdoms of trust and inspiration? What a moment. What a time. Thank you, Stephen M.R. Covey, for being here with us. Thank you for bringing your light, your wisdom, your knowledge, and all that you offer the world in such an important time of great earth changes, both in our business, at home, everything that's going on. This rises right to the place where we are one, where we can connect in that place of our trust, in the place of love, where we can move through our times together. And as we say goodbye, I have one last thing to ask you, because the world is so darn serious. We live in a very serious world. What is your cure for terminal seriousness?
Beautiful question. I would say this.
Yeah.
Be a light, not a judge.
Beautiful.
We judge each other too much. Be a light.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that it will being a light will lighten things up.
Yes. Being a light will lighten things up. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Be well. Safe travels to you.
Well, thank you, Adam. And I really admire you and the transcendent, transformational work you are doing. Honored to be part of this. Thank you.